So it was day 2 of the NBA draft combine, and obviously some players are doing well, others aren't, and a lot of the time, as far as the scrimmages are concerned, they don't matter too much because, look, most of the best players are not competing in the scrimmages, but you still can see, maybe not necessarily who are going to be great NBA players, but there are some times you don't mind seeing someone playing them. You don't mind seeing something like that. And Bronny James has had a really good draft combine. Like, he's had a good enough draft combine that you take the risk with a second round pick on him, because he has shown, like, and this is the one thing I will say from Bronny in high school, like, he was never the guy in high school, but no matter what level he played, he just fit in. He fit in with teams. He wasn't the star. He wasn't going to be anything spectacular. And that's why, like, even at USC, he didn't do great. His shooting splits were not great, didn't play well, but again, was coming off cardiac arrest. But, like, it looks to be, no matter what level he seems to be playing at, he gives the same. Like, obviously, the NBA is a step up. Like, is he ready for the NBA right now? No, he's not. But, like, the more I watch him, the more I'm like, he actually might not be. Like, there will be worse players than him not drafted, or there'll be better players than him not drafted. But he is a know your role guy. Like, he just comes out and plays the game the right way. Like, he will give energy, he'll play defense, he won't do anything dumb. He'll pass the ball pretty well, he'll hit open jump shots. And they're all skills that translate. His actual game translates to playing with better players. Like, Bronny James's game is to be the 4th or 5th best player on the floor at all times. That is his game. And nothing wrong with that. Because we haven't really seen that much of it. We've seen it sometimes at, like, the collegiate level, where some of the guys that are, like, glue guys for the best teams in the country that were 5-star recruits can translate, and maybe can do a little bit more. But I don't know, like, he's been a glue guy everywhere he's gone, and I still think he can play that role. Like, he's going to be the type of guy that might give you 6 points, 1.5 assists, play decent defense in 15 minutes a game in the NBA. But then he goes to the G League and he gives you 12 points, 1 steal in 20 minutes, like something along those lines. Like, he's not going to be the guy that takes over at any level, because that's not his game, and 2, that's not what he's good at. Like, you could put Bronny James, like, I saw, like, the footage of Bronny James even when he was playing in England. He didn't stand out, but he seems to be, like, there's a good way, people describe football players like this. They will give you a 7 out of 10 every game. Like, they're not going to look out of this world, they're never going to look terrible. And at the NBA level, he'll probably give you a 6 out of 10 every game. But that's the type of player that Bronny could become. Like, you're seeing all these guys having to translate into that role. You're seeing guys that were stars in college, stars in high school, because everyone was that in the NBA. Having to, like, translate their roles, or having to, like, change up how they play to fit a role in the NBA and figuring out their roles. Whereas Bronny is a ready-made role player. And I don't know how it's going to translate. The more I watch him, and it's just, I even was saying this last year, I'm like, I thought, obviously in hindsight, best thing ever for him that he went to USC, because they had the medical staff there when he had his cardiac arrest. I always said this before when he was in high school. It was like, he should go to overseas for a year, because he'll go to Australia and he'll average 6 points a game, and he's a guarantee to be a lottery pick. But if he goes to college and averages 6 points a game, he goes into the second round, because I didn't think that he's an NBA level player. And I actually don't think, as far as, like, if his name was LeBron James Jr., he'd be even in these conversations. But at the same time, there are so many guys, you guys don't understand, there are so many guys playing overseas that could be playing in the NBA and could give you decent minutes. Being in the NBA and sticking for a long time is literally a case, especially if you're like a fringe player, if you're a 9th man, it's a case of doing one thing particularly well, or you are with a team and they like you. And then if you're in the league for 5 or 6 years and you still do that one team thing well, and you're known as like a good locker room guy and a good role player, you might keep on some of your like low contracts, you might stay in the league. The difference between somebody that is a role player in the NBA and is a player that's playing for a team in EuroLeague, Euro Cup, Champions League, especially if they are American because of the import rules, is literally a lot of it's luck. A lot of it is luck, being in the right place at the right time, and honestly, the name LeBron James Jr. is going to get him in the door. And all he has to do, for Bronny to stick in the league, all he has to do is show that he's fine. All he has to do is show that he's fine. And I actually would not be that surprised if he does. Like Bronny James, if Bronny James, for his career, will play 15 minutes a game, will give you really good defense. Like some people are saying, oh, he can be Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell's a lot better in defense than Bronny James is. Bronny probably will shoot better than Davion Mitchell. But like there's scenarios where he can fit a role. Like he seems to have a high IQ. He seems like he's going to fit into whatever team. It's just a question of whether or not the talent gap is too high. Like if the talent gap is just way too high, there's no amount of high IQ, there's no amount of game fitting, there's no amount of anything that will work. But I'd be interested to see if it is. Because very clearly, as far as talent level goes, he's not an NBA talent. But you can learn on the job. Like, you can learn on the job in anything. A little bit in the G League, playing with the NBA team. Especially if you're smart. If you have the IQ level that Bronny James seems to have for the game. He can learn on the job. And he'll learn on the job better than he'll learn going back to USC. People want him to go back to USC and be like, oh, you're going to take more of the ball. You're going to score. They want him to score 12, 15 points a game. One, that's not going to be his game when he goes to the NBA. Two, he's not going to be able to do it. Like, I genuinely don't think that Bronny James is going to average if he goes to the G League. Like, Bronny James could average, again, similar-ish numbers in the NBA and the G League. There's potential on that. Just because of the way he plays. He is a role player. He's going to be a role player in college. He was a role player in high school. He's going to be a role player in the NBA. Is he ever going to average more than 10 points a game in the NBA? Unlikely. Is he going to play more than 5 years in the NBA? Maybe. Honestly, maybe. The way he plays the game, he's one of those guys where it's like, get your foot in the door, show that you can play, show that your team doesn't lose anything when you're on the floor, and your minutes will creep up. And if you can show, especially if he lands on a good team, like if he lands on a good team and he plays any minutes and doesn't seem to looks competent in those minutes, teams are going to just keep stringing him along. They're going to keep stringing him along. One, because his name is LeBron James Jr., even with LeBron out of the league. And two, there's a lot to be said for guys that don't do anything wrong on the floor. And he doesn't seem to do anything wrong. So that's just my opinion on Bronny James. Like, I watched the as much as I could of his scrimmages, and people are like, oh, he's like, he only scored 13. It's like, yeah, like that's Bronny James. That's what you're going to get from him. That's the most you're going to get from him. But it's how he gets it. He doesn't do anything crazy. He doesn't try to, like, he plays within himself. He seems to know what he's good at. He seems to know what he's not good at. And that all bodes well. Like, sure, to like people that don't have experience with any sort of like decent level sport, they might say, oh, but like, why would he get a chance over like player X who averaged 12 more points a game in high school? It's like, can player X, is he going to be okay with coming into the NBA and averaging 3 points a game? Whereas I think Bronny will be. So yeah, the more I watch and the more I like think about the situation, the more confident I am that he's going to get drafted. But I genuinely think that there will be worse players than him drafted, and there will also be better players than him not drafted. But I think he deserves a shot. I think just the way his game is, the way it translates, there's a lot to be said for the ability to be a glue guy, and he's coming in as someone who's been a glue guy his whole life. So you're not going to have to change his game for him to do that. Maybe I'm overrating him. Maybe I've just bought into the hype, but I don't know if he becomes an NBA player. The only way, like, as I've said, if the talent gap is just too high, if he's so far off talent-wise, there's no amount of fitting in, being a good teammate, and IQ that's going to help him. But we're yet to see if that gap is there. Like, obviously, there's going to be most players getting more talented than him. But again, some of the most talented players in the world never really made it. Heck, Michael Beasley's one of the most talented players in the last 20 years, and the guy was out of the league after like 6 years.